Today on Portland Tea Party, I barely got out of my house, and I'm sure you're all stuck inside, so we're going to bring you a very interesting show. We have a very special guest today, the Multnomah County DA, Mike Schmidt. Let's have some tea. It is very cold outside. I don't know who else is completely over it. I've been stuck in my house for a week. I was ready. I went grocery shopping. I was like, I'm going to stay home. It's going to be cozy. It's going to be like early COVID when I got cleaned out my basement. 3 days of that, I'm done. Fortunately, I can work from home, so I was able to stay safe. But, after a week, you need to walk outside. I know a lot of you didn't have power this week. I'm very sorry. I hope you had a fireplace. Seeing people who are out on the streets because they didn't have a choice was absolutely heartbreaking. So we want to, of course, say thank you to all of our amazing first responders, to the people actually on the ground with PBOT, PG&E, and all the other people working hard to make sure that we stay safe and can actually get back on the move very soon. Good news, warmer weather is coming. It's going to be like a heat wave of 38 today or something. I don't know. This is not real news, so I can just pick a temperature. So it will get warmer, I promise. Brighter days are ahead. But stay safe out there. Should I have gone down my driveway with like an inch of ice on my car and on the driveway? No, I shouldn't. But I'm here for you, and I'm making this show for you, and I would not let you down. Plus, we have the best guest ever today. But before I tell you, where are we today? Well, we're at the beautiful library room of the Heathman Hotel, legendary Portland venue, right on Broadway in the heart of downtown. If you visited Portland before you moved here, or my parents used to come here for their anniversary, the Heathman's been around. The Heathman is legendary. It's been featured in certain books that I did not display here on the side, but you can just look that up. And they've been so kind to us and so easy to work with. And of course, they have afternoon tea, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. But first, our guest today, I am so excited to welcome Multnomah County District Attorney, Michael Schmidt.
In the criminal justice system, Portlanders elect a district attorney to represent them. This is his story.
Michael Schmidt, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you are doing me a massive favor, and you don't even know me, but I was like, hey, will you be my first interview? We're doing a show. I'm not an actual journalist. I might ask you anything, but here you are. So Thank you.
Oh, happy to get the text message. And I was like, all right, I'm up.
Yeah, truth, you called me a couple months ago, and I was like, who's this? And it was like, this is the DA, and I was like, what did I do? And I couldn't remember, but it was all good. It was business. But I said, hey, by the way, we're working on this project. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So this is not about news. This is not about, I want to know, what is a district attorney? What does a district attorney do? And why should we care? So let's just start with what does a district county do? Why is it Multnomah County versus Portland? Go for it.
Yeah. So a district attorney is an elected position in the county. Oregon has 36 of them, 36 counties, 36 district attorneys, and they are the top law enforcement officer of the jurisdiction of the county. So they set the policy a lot of times.
Oh, wow.
In smaller counties, there are some district attorney offices that are one person big. And so the elected is literally in the courtroom doing the charging, doing everything. Yeah. In larger counties like Multnomah County, we have a 260 person office. So for me, my job as the elected is actually a lot more running a law firm, one of the biggest law firms in the state of Oregon. We have 96 prosecuting attorneys. And those are the attorneys who, if you're picturing Law and Order in your head.
Yeah, I'm always picturing Law and Order in my head.
They're in the courtroom, right?
Okay.
They're the ones that take the information and the evidence from the police and then they make the charging decisions. So they read the police reports, they look at the evidence exhibits, and then they're the ones who ultimately decide what crimes you could be charged with. They make
So
that
many.
decision. And then eventually, where a case plays out would be in a courtroom.
Yeah.
And so they're in front of a jury, in front of a judge, explaining the evidence.
So can you take me through that with like a very hypothetical case? Like, let's say, well, this might be federal, but let's say I was running a drug cartel out of my basement, and then like the sheriff would come. Is that a bad example because that's federal? I don't even know where this break, because I'm not a criminal.
Well, you know, drug cases, depending, you know, if they're crossing interstate lines,
Okay.
that's a lot of times when you get in the federal cases. But just say local drug dealing situation case, depending on where you're at in the county. Portland Police polices the city of Portland. They have a specific jurisdiction. The sheriff polices the entire county. So she has a certain jurisdiction. Gresham Police, they have their own police agency, so they do the city of Gresham. So it just kind of depends where you were located. But if you're in the city of Portland, and let's say a neighbor calls and says, hey, I see drug activity happening in this house, then they'll call 911, 911. A lot of people think, oh, I called the police. You don't call the police.
Yeah, it's like an emergency dispatch, and they route your call to the right match.
Exactly right. So they're the ones who say, okay, we'll get you in touch with the police. The police then say, you know, once they get dispatched out, they'll talk to the person, see if they have enough evidence, and if they can, if they see somebody committing a crime, they can arrest them. In a drug dealing house situation, you're probably going to get a warrant to go in, and that's when they would start working.
If you are drug dealing out of your house, you're getting a lot of tips right now of what not to do. So just,
Yeah, start with not drug dealing out of your house.
yeah,
That's the
okay,
first tip.
okay.
But so, you know, that's when a police officer would actually start to work with my office, with the prosecuting attorney. And they'd say, hey, I need a warrant to go into this house. Here's the evidence
right.
that I have. I believe I have probable cause, enough evidence to make it more likely that illegal activity is going on. One of my prosecuting attorneys will help them write the warrant, and then we submit it to a judge. Judge reviews it. If they agree that there's probable cause, they will sign the warrant, and that's when the police officers come knocking on the door. Hey, we have a warrant, and then they go in and do the search and gather evidence.
Okay, so you're not like in the courtroom trying cases.
Me personally, I'm not. No.
So you're like the mentor or boss of the other
Yeah, that's right.
attorneys.
Yeah, you know, I really see my role as being the person who supports their work. You know, one of the challenges that has been in my office since I've taken over is how under-resourced we've been.
When people in government say resource, they mean money.
They mean money,
Okay.
and for us, people.
Yeah.
Exactly right. The district attorney's office, we don't build widgets. We have people. We have staff and salary. So when I started, we had 72 prosecuting attorneys. When I was an intern 15 years ago in this same office, we had over 100. So in that 15 years, we saw a huge decline.
But that's okay because we don't have crime anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Well, let's keep that going.
Yeah.
That's accurate. And so we've built back the office. We're up to 96. So
Great.
where I see my job, my role, I'm not like a small county attorney who's doing everything in the courtroom. My job is to build connections, build coalitions,
Right.
work to help the women and men in my office be successful at doing their work to keep our community safe.
So here's a huge question that I have. The district attorney in Multnomah County is it in every county is it elected?
It is, yep.
Okay. What qualifies me as a citizen to understand who would be good at that job? Like, you know, there's certain, you know, like the Supreme Court is appointed, they're judges, but, you know, there's a lot of legal, you know, public servants who are chosen. So, I mean, just your own philosophy, like why should that be an elected role, or what are the pros and cons?
You know, and we're going through an election cycle right now, so I'm doing a lot of conversation with the community. And I think it's incredibly important because as the top law enforcement official of the county, I get to interface with community members directly, and they might not necessarily know, and it's not their job to know the legal system, the legalese, but they probably have somebody in their family who's been addicted to drugs, somebody in their family who may have been arrested for a crime, and they've seen that, or have been victims of crime. I mean, when I was a teacher in high school in New Orleans, like a lot of my students had been adjacent to the criminal justice system, some of them in it. And so I think a lot of community members have started to have, probably more than ever, an understanding that in this country, we're one of the most incarcerated nations on earth. We have some of the most greatest disparity of who is incarcerated. Our BIPOC community is much more likely to be incarcerated. And so I think it's actually really good that the position's elected, because the community gets a voice in the policies of the agency.
I love that. So what kind of things, so average person, very busy, doesn't understand how the whole like legal system works, the justice system. What kind of things do you think that they should care about if they are voting on a district attorney? Like, should I vote from just like who I want to have tea with, or should I vote from like my values or like their experience or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think values, like, for any office, you know that when you elect somebody, we have a representative democracy. You might not agree with them 100% of the time on every decision they make, but if you align with their values, you at least know that they're coming at it from a perspective that you can respect, even if you would come at a different position. So I think values are very important. For me, my values as district attorney have been that we can be safer, and we can do it with making our criminal justice system smarter. Like I said, I've started as an intern in this office. I prosecuted for 5 years. Then I got to leave. I got to travel the world. I've been to Norway. I've been to Angola and Louisiana. I've been around a lot of places. And there are some really great things happening in this space that prove that if you treat human beings like human beings, you can actually get better outcomes. So I think, if you're a values voter, you look at, I want to be safe. Community safety is, I think, baseline to a community. You can't have businesses and schools if you're not safe. So you got to have the safety, but then you say, well, how are we going to create safety? Does that mean building more jails and less schools or less hospitals? It might not create more safety. So it's how do you approach it?
I have 1 million questions for you now, but we only have a few minutes. One last thing I want to ask you right now is about efficiency, because I worry as a Portlander and a hefty taxpayer here that there's double work happening. So like what you said about if I call 911, there's like Portland Police, but then there's Multnomah County Sheriff, but then like there's lawyers at every entity. Like, can you just briefly explain how it doesn't end up being like 4 people who should be doing the same job?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the things that is probably not understood this well. Is kind of, it's a continuum. Our criminal justice system, I think of it as like a coral reef, like an ecosystem. Like I got kids, right? So Finding Nemo, all of my analogies and metaphors are Disney related.
Oh, I appreciate this. Yes.
So, think of, everybody has a job. Everyone has something very specific to do. The little shrimp are cleaning the fish, other things, right? So it's like that. And so it starts with community members, and they make a decision. Do I make a call or not? Do I report this or not? And it goes to dispatch. And then dispatch is really kind of your quarterback figuring out, okay,
No. Stay with the ocean.
Stay with the
metaphor.
ocean. Don't stop mixing the metaphors.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'll have to think about that
Okay,
more.
all right.
They're deciding what is the right resource. Could be police, could be fire, could be Portland Street Response, could be
love them.
some other entity that can do the work. Then that entity comes out, but let's say it's police. Now the police show up and they say, okay, now we're going to start to gather evidence if a crime is committed or not. And then they have a decision. Do I make an arrest? Do I not? Let's say that they do. Then they go to the jail. Now you're talking about the sheriff's. Sheriff runs a jail. And so now the sheriff decides, okay, I'm going to read the judge's orders, who gets held in jail, who doesn't get held in jail. At this point, the police are handing their police reports to my office. Prosecutors start reviewing the evidence and saying, these are the charges that we believe we can prove. Now we're back in court the next day. Person's arraigned. do they have a defense attorney available to be appointed? And right now we have a crisis of not enough defense attorneys. And so it's like every part of the system is dependent on the links in the system to work together.
Yeah.
And so we do coordinate, and we also care a lot about efficiencies. And I think there are areas like bolstering Portland street response that when you know that you don't have enough of a police resource, that they're spread too thin, there's only two answers.
Yeah.
You get more police, or do you take more work off their plate?
Right.
And resources like Portland Street Response and others can help do that.
Yeah, a quick aside, Portland Street Response was started a few years ago, and it's designed to, people have different ideas of what it's designed to do, but it's designed to take the weight off of other first responders like police and fire for like non-emergency calls. So like a ton of calls that they get is someone having like a mental health crisis, or somebody who's like maybe, having an addiction issue or something like that. And so it was piloted by Portland Fire and Rescue. And it's incredible, but it's a little under fire because I think people don't quite understand the benefits of it. And of course, all we see is like the one time they get something wrong, and that's what people talk about. We're going to talk more about street response later because my company actually work with them, but I digress. Mike, we have so much more to talk about.
Great.
Will you stay for tea?
I would love to stay for tea.
Okay. When we come back, we are going to have tea with District Attorney Michael Schmidt. And it's hard to say Michael because I want to say Mike, but I'll practice. And we'll see you after this break. Have some tea. We are at the Heathman that has a legendary holiday tea, a high tea. You can make a reservation. You can bring your favorite people. It is a perfect special occasion thing to do. And this year they extended it through January. So you only have 2 weeks left if you'd like to do tea at the Heathman. And that is what my new best friend Mike and I are doing today.
This is nice.
Right. So during tea, we have to talk about the hot gossip. So we're not going to say anything mean, but we want to know like your real story. So you grew up in New York, upstate, not the city.
That's right.
And you
call it Central New York.
Central? Okay, all right, yeah, okay. Well, and then you went to school there, and then tell me about your teaching.
Yeah, I taught high school down in New Orleans. I Teach for America program and AmeriCorps program. I taught 9th and 10th grade social studies and civics at an aviation and automotive themed school. So I taught a lot about, the Wright brothers and Henry Ford and kind of the history of that industrialization, things of that nature. And got to work with kids who were interested in those things.
That's awesome. Did you always know you were then going to go to law school, or did you think you wanted to be a teacher, or were you just kind of figuring it out?
Yeah, I was just kind of figuring it out. I mean, I thought maybe I wanted to go to law school, but, wasn't sure, and thought, I should learn more about our education system. At the time, there was a lot of conversation around No Child Left Behind, and we were really talking about educational policy. So I thought it'd be a great area for me to get my hands dirty and dig in and learn some more.
So what made you decide to do law school?
After teaching for a couple years, I just felt like law school would be the right thing for me. At the time, I thought, you know what, I'll be an environmental lawyer. That's what I wanted to do. So the two best environmental law schools in the country are in Tulane, in New Orleans, and Portland at Lewis and Clark.
Figures.
And so, having lived in New Orleans for the last 2 years, I wasn't positive that I could both live in the city of New Orleans and be a successful law student. Because I love that city a lot.
It's really fun.
I love it hard. It was amazing food, music, everything. And so I thought, you know what, let's give Portland a try. And I didn't have any family or friends here, but took the leap.
I met this guy the other day, and he was like, I moved here to Portland from LA so I could be more bored and get my content made. And he's like, it's working too well. I said, you're going to make friends. It's going to be okay. It's a moment. But okay, so you said you interned at Multnomah County, so you went straight there after school?
Yeah, so in your, as you're going through your second year of law school, you're taking certain classes that make you ethically allowed to be what they call a certified law student. So anyway.
This is like in Legally Blonde.
Yeah, there you go, right. And so it gives students an opportunity to get some actual practical experience in the courtroom. And so at the end of my second year, I joined the district attorney's office as a CLS, an intern, and got to start trying cases, and I kind of got the bug.
And you rose through the ranks. Were you always at the county, or did you go somewhere else and come back?
So my first job out of law school was at the district attorney's office. So I was an intern, then I got hired on. I prosecuted there until 2013. And then, so it's about 5 years of prosecution. I decided that, I would try my hand at something else. Oh, here's the snacks.
Wow, look how fancy we are.
Oh, it's amazing.
It was worth coming all the way downtown for this. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, look. Are you able to eat all things? Do you have dietary?
I can eat all things.
Yeah, let's eat all the things. So, so I'm sorry, I interrupted you because there was food.
So I actually, I left the district attorney's office and went to the legislature.
Oh, okay.
And so I became counsel for the House and Senate Judiciary Committees in the 2013 session.
Oh, wow.
That's where the policy bug kind of bit me.
Yeah, and can you explain, what is policy? It's like the laws that we make.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, so, the district attorneys, the prosecutors, they are looking at the laws that are on the books, and then they enforce those laws. Well, I didn't really grasp this until I left and went to the legislature. Laws can be changed. And I know that sounds so obvious, right? It's like Schoolhouse Rock. We all know laws can be changed. But then you go and work in the legislature and you're like, oh, you can. And you just rewrite them to the way that you think fits the best needs of the community. And
it's not like one person gets to decide. The law, it has to go through a whole process. But, if you believe in something, anybody could work toward a law being changed. You don't have to be an official.
And I've literally seen community members reach out to their elected officials, their legislators, House or Senate, and say, hey, here's a challenge I'm facing in my community. Here's an idea for how to fix it. And I've seen it go, it's not one person makes it happen. Yeah. It's work groups and everything else. But it happens. It's pretty cool. It's a really amazing process.
If you believe in something and went through that process, I think it would be so fulfilling. That would be one of the best things you did in your whole life.
Yeah.
To actually make a change that affects everybody in a positive way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I got to do that in my next job at the Criminal Justice Commission. So I got appointed to run a state agency called the Criminal Justice Commission, and the whole mission of the state agency is to improve our criminal justice system. And so I got to work with legislators and lawmakers on a lot of different policy to help improve our criminal justice system.
Okay, Mike. We can read all of this in your bio and your LinkedIn. So let's go behind there a little bit. This is the T. Is there another career you ever considered?
People ask me, oh, did you always know you were going to be the district attorney, right?
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I just kind of, I'm a straight B student at law school. So, the internships weren't knocking down my door. I applied to a lot of different places to try a lot of different things. The district attorney's office is the one that gave me a shot. And so I started doing that, and I'm like, oh, I love being in the courtroom. So it was kind of not intentional. And then again, at the legislature, I'm like, oh my goodness, I love policy. And then I became a state agency director. So it's just kind of, flowed. So there really wasn't a path set or a plan. So I've been kind of open. I don't know. So my 8th grade teacher in high school had us write a postcard to ourselves in the future. And, good for him. He put stamps on it and mailed it to us 15 years later.
15?
Yeah. So I opened it up. I got it while I was here in Portland, actually. And it said, hey, future Mike, I hope your job at the advertising agency is going well, doing graphic design. So clearly, I had other ideas when I was younger.
I love that. So I have, I throw a New Year's event every year, and I have everybody write a letter to their future selves, and I take them all and I mail it sometime during the year. But 15 years?
He had to put extra stamps on.
Yeah, for sure. Stamps that weren't invented yet. Yeah. Okay, so if you had to pick any other career right now than the one you have, what would it be?
Awesome.
Anything, not legal.
I've actually been thinking about journalism.
Yeah.
You know, as being through this experience, I do a lot of talking to community members, and a lot of that is basic education. And I don't feel like a lot of our journalism is really getting across what's really happening. And not even, I'm not trying to dig at the journalists, like
no, they don't have enough
newsrooms,
resources.
they're getting shrunk,
Yeah.
Budget cuts. I just saw there's another paper laying off massive. So it's like, we keep cutting the professionals who are supposed to do this work to keep us informed. And of course, what happens is people are less informed. So if you told me, hey, Mike, you don't worry about money, you're going to go do whatever you want, I think journalism. I'd love to interview people and really dig in.
Or you could make a show that's not depressing, that actually talks to real people and helps people understand what's happening, because you don't let them just only do talking points, although I'm letting you say a lot of very fancy sounding things, but there's other ways to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my most important question for you. Which is your favorite Law and Order? Regular Law and Order Special Victims Unit, Law and Order Criminal Intent, Law and Order Organized Crime, and there were a few other that were canceled, but let's call those the top 4.
I don't watch Law and Order. It's a little bit like, working for fun. But my wife is a huge fan, and so she goes SVU all the time.
Team SVU. Although I think that Organized Crime is a contender, and I really want to thank the Dick Wolf Empire for bringing us this whole new storytelling, and the crossovers with the other Law and Orders are. So tell your wife if she ever wants a watch buddy, I'm here for it.
She's also big into murder podcasts.
Yeah, well, it's a thing right now. Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel you, because I can't watch Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of helping entrepreneurs and people work out their ideas, and I can't watch it.
Yeah.
Because I also want to yell at the TV. Yeah, and it feels like work.
Exactly.
For sure. So if we were going to karaoke after this, what would you sing?
So I get to travel around and hang out with national DAs from other cities, and some, the most big cities around the country, Philadelphia and New York and Chicago. And we actually have taken to karaoke. So it's a wild thing seeing a bunch of the most important DAs around the country singing karaoke. So the last time I did it, I did it with a co-singer, and we did Bye 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 by NSYNC.
Yeah, with the...
Yeah, great. I mean, you get the choreography.
It's good.
If I was just kicking it with my friends and a little bit kick back, I like the Sweater Song by Weezer.
Could you sing it? I can't think of how that goes.
No.
All right. Well, we'll just
acapella DA.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Well, if you want my vote, that's what you're gonna have to do.
All right. We'll go to voice box.
Yeah. So, real question. Sometimes people don't like you. I know how that feels, but people don't like you much more than they don't like me. And I don't think that they really know you, because you seem lovely. But when somebody kind of trolls you, or even if they have a decent reason, I mean, this is not a job you do to be popular, right?
Right.
How do you handle it? This is I'm so curious how you all deal with that.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. Most of the time, my experience has been, even when somebody comes up and they think that they're angry with me, they want somebody to listen to them. I mean, really, they probably had an interaction that was not positive with the criminal justice system, and they are frustrated and they feel like nobody cares. So for a lot of people, what I try to do is listen and really kind of understand what their issue is and try to tease that out of them, okay, what really happened? And then if I can, I try to help and try to navigate. I was on an airplane and I was sitting next to somebody, and there was a person in front of me, and he said, we knew each other. He said, "Oh, Mike, how you doing? How's the campaign going?" And I said, "Oh, it's going good." And so the guy next to me says, "Oh, what are you running for?" And I said, "Oh, District Attorney in Multnomah County." He goes, "Oh, thank God, we need a better one there."
and you were already.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, I'm Mike Schmidt, I'm the district attorney. And so, but we got to talk. We got to have a real conversation.
Yeah.
And I was like, so what's going on for you? And for him, his frustration was he had a record and he was trying to get it expunged. And the process was taking a really, really long time.
Yeah. It takes forever.
It takes forever. And so, I got to say, hey, here's my business card, email me. I'm going to try to help you navigate this. And so I think, with most people, every once in a while, there are some folks that are just, they're not interested in a dialogue or a conversation. And so that I feel kind of unfulfilling. But most of the time, we all want the same things. We want a safe and healthy community. We want people to be treated with dignity and respect, whether you're a victim or whether you're a defendant. Most people, that's a value that they have. And so I think if you can actually talk it out, I walk into a lot of rooms where I see kind of crossed arms and sour faces. And by the time I leave, people are like, I like that guy. He's pretty good, And it's like, so if we can really have a real conversation, not billboards and bumper stickers, but a real conversation, people are like, oh, I get it. This is complicated. It's hard. You're trying. The people around you are trying, and we can get to a good place.
When a group takes it to the level of billboard or bumper sticker, I just don't believe them automatically, because I'm like, you're being so extra right now, and you're turning a person into a caricature. You've lost me. So, come on, people, be a little more sophisticated than that.
I saw somebody is selling onesies, children's onesies with my face on them, talking about say no to the Portland Schmidt show.
I mean, it's kind of cool. We should do a spinoff of this called The Schmidt Show,
Hey.
and then you can re-own it the way I'm re-owning Tea Party.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've had so many Portlanders come up to me and say, hey, The Schmidt Show, is that a podcast you're doing? They're like, that sounds great.
You should do it, and you get the URL and everything. We'll work on this with your advertising agency skills you never
That's
got.
that I never really flexed.
Oh, cool. Well, I hope we're best friends now.
That's right. I think so.
Cool. You have to say yes. 'Cause we're on camera.
That's right.
This is what I do. I back people into a stage or a camera, and then I'm like, we're best friends, right? And they're like, yeah. All right. Well, let's finish this delicious food. I'm sure I have dropped a piece of caviar into my tea, which is the best problem I could ever have. And when we're back, we're going to tell you about the parties, the next events you'll want to catch in the next week. Probably gone through all of your Netflix, Hulu, Apple, Amazon, HBO lists. So let's get out and about. First and foremost, there is a dog show happening this week at the Expo Center. It's the big dog show. You can't even bring your dog. It has to be a properly vetted dog. So if you love dogs like I do, please go check out I think it's the Royal Dog Show. I don't know. We'll link it in the show notes. The other thing that's starting this week is my very favorite movie of all time was turned into a stage musical, and it is being presented right next door at Portland 5. That's right, it's Newsies. I could recite the whole movie for you right here, but I won't. But I do recommend you watch the movie before you go to the live stage production, because they changed the lyrics so we couldn't sing along in the audience, which I do not approve of, but I'm still going to go see it. Very excited to see Newsies playing right here downtown Portland. Now, let's talk about some things that you have a little more time to see. If you have not been to the Portland Art Museum this year or in the last month, you are missing out, because it's two of the best exhibitions I've ever seen there. Number one is Africa Fashion. I'm here for a fashion exhibit all day, every day, but it's really amazing. I learned a lot. I've already been twice. We have to try to do a show from there before it closes. I think there's a month left. And then if you go upstairs, there is Black Artists of Oregon. And some of our friends are in there, and people who I didn't even know were artists. I'm reading the names, and it's so exciting to see your neighbors' art right there up in the museum walls. So be sure to visit Portland Art Museum. They have some great deals. I think membership there is absolutely worth it. So those are your top 3 parties. And of course, this show is yours, so pitch your idea. Do you have a person you want us to talk to? Is there a venue you want us to visit? Is there a party or event you have coming up? Just go to portlandteaparty.com or tag us at Portland Tea Party and pitch us your idea. And with that, we wish you a warm and safe weekend, and we will see you next week for even more Portland, more tea, and of course, more parties. Signing off.